1 minute.
Give me 1 minute.
1 minute, okay.
Well, give me a 3-minute warning.
3-minute.
Okay, so this isn't quite an announcement about what I'll call third generation Agile, but I've been thinking about this for a while and working with some other people on it as well. And it's actually about disbanding, in a sense, relearning, maybe repackaging what we do. And I'm just CEO of Net Objectives. A lot of you know me. I love this quote, and it's kind of relevant, so I just put it in there just to let you read it. So to date, and this isn't at all meant to be complete, you know, we have the, if you look at Scrum, you know, it's acknowledged that it pulls from a lot of principles. And by principles, I mean things that are axiomatic, things that your opinion don't matter. Gravity works, it just is. Your opinion about it doesn't matter. How you are effective may have something to do with your opinion of gravity, but gravity is gravity. So these things I've got in the white on the middle are things that are just basically true. Retrospections are useful, agile principles. You know, avoiding interruptions are good. Visibility of what goes in and out of your project is good. Respecting people, you know, small batches, value teams, things like this. Inspect and adapt. These are all good things. And then there's some other stuff Scrum pulls as well, but those aren't necessarily, I'm not saying they're wrong or bad. I'm just saying they're not necessarily laws. Now Kanban does something similar, but it pulls from different things. And it doesn't always pull from the same thing Scrum pulls from. It doesn't really talk about teams. It adds flow, explicit policies that you should look at the value stream. You know, lean management is a different psychology than management in Scrum, things like that. Human psychology, managing work in progress, and I consider those to be principles. Again, doesn't really matter your opinion, doesn't matter my opinion. And then there's some other things it pulls from. Now, what sometimes people have been talking about is, hey, let's create a hybrid system. I've even talked about this. You know, you pull from the best of Scrum and the best of Kanban, but this ignores something. So what if instead of this, what if what we did is we just stopped and we said, wait a moment, we've been using Scrum, I've been using it for 13 years, and it's actually been in existence for longer than that. What if we said, what have we learned about these principles from using Scrum? In other words, we have a deeper understanding of teams. I know I do. I know I did not appreciate teams. Actually, I'll tell you where I got the appreciation of teams from was Stephen Denning, of all people. I wondered, why are you so attracted to the Scrum community? And then he told me, and I said, wow, that's a good reason. So I started really appreciating the power of Scrum teams. But there are other things we've learned from Scrum. And the same thing with Kanban. And when I say Kanban now, I mean, like, I guess Carl Scotland's Kanban thinking, not so much to the Kanban method. But we've learned a lot from the Kanban method. It's something you could put in wherever you want and slowly transition to. So there's a lot we've learned from all sorts of things with Kanban. And what would happen if we said, well, let's forget the trappings of the principles from which we've learned that we call Scrum, that we call Kanban, Kanban method, Lean Kanban, Kanban thinking, whatever you want to call it. And what if we just said, hey, given what we know, what if we repackaged something? What if we actually made something I'll call Lean Agile, which is not new, intentionally so. What if we just did that? Wouldn't that make more sense than holding on to kind of our, I don't mean this to be attacking, but I would suggest that when you look at one side of the diagram or the other, you are by nature myopic. And the reason you're by nature myopic is not because you are doing myopia, but when you say, look at this, you don't look at that. And even if you say, well, I'm not excluding that, you don't notice it. So actually, most everybody's facing, close your eyes for 1 second. There are some curtains to the right of this room. How many of you know what color they are? What color are they?
I was going to say green.
Yeah, they are. They are green. See, I wouldn't have known except that, look, what I continuously see are Scrum teams who don't pay attention to flow and Kanban teams who don't pay attention to teams. Those are not exclusive of each other. So what if we built something where we decided what we looked at was what we needed to look at? Now this doesn't mean a one-size-fits-all by any means. In fact, actually this is a bit more complicated. So there's something else that needs to happen. In other words, if you initially just built something like this, you'd have a system that people wouldn't know where to start. Which is why I think the packaging and all that works. People want answers, whether they should want answers or not. They do. Whether it's a good idea or not, they do. That's also, by the way, doesn't matter your opinion, I guess. I guess you can choose not to work with those people. But, so I think what we need is, even though this avoids the framework and method myopia, it requires a starting point. And maybe 3 or 4 starting points. Like, do I do sprints or not do sprints? Well, that's actually a very easy determination. Sprints have very well-defined reasons for them, based on discipline, based on communication. Kanban, of course, virtually everybody does cadence of some sort or another. But you can actually, I believe, and I haven't totally done this, like I said, I'm working with some others, but come up with what I would suspect is not going to be more than 3 or 4 well-defined cases as how to start that's just as predefined as Scrum, as predefined as the Kanban method. Neither one of which are always easy to start. Scrum requires certain teams, Kanban requires certain agreements. Those agreements are sometimes really hard to get. Plus, managing flow by managing queue size is one of 4 ways to manage flow, and in my opinion, is not the best one most of the time. Structure, workflow order, workload often have much more direct impact more quickly. So there's this kind of myopia. So we have to have a starting point, and then I'm going to say a transition point. If we understand why we're starting where we're starting, then we can forget about transition for the minute, just kind of get improvement in visibility, and then we can say, well, when you get to this point, you can change this practice when this thing happens. Like, why do Scrum teams sometimes abandon hard sprint iterations? Well, when they don't need the discipline they provide. Well, that's a good reason, but if you abandon them when you need that discipline, you're just doing bad Scrum. So this is something we're mapping out. I'm going to announce more of this next week on this thing called the Lean Agile project. It's kind of an open community thing that Objectives is sponsoring. We have actually a couple people who are interested in it, who are helping me with it, like Steve Tendon and Carl Scotland. I haven't sent out a lot of announcements yet. It's open. If anybody wants to contribute to it, just send me an email. And that's it.
Thank you. We have 3 seconds. Anybody got a quick question?
Yes?
Are you in some way looking at a unified view of the Agile philosophy, the Lean philosophy, and things like that? Is it where you're going with this?
I'm not really trying to unify anything in the sense that I believe people having different opinions and different perspectives is valuable. What I'm looking at is, I would say, more of a scientific view. I want to look at a modeling that works, not a holding on to perspectives or practices because they worked once. And I think it's just more of a scientific modeling approach. And it's open, so in that sense it's unified, but people, we get strength by diversity.